and we develop a character of the supernatural. We live supernatural lives to serve God's purpose, to carry out God's mandate, to fulfill God's assignment upon the face of the earth. Now in 1 Corinthians, Brother Paul now began to make observations in the church that he was pastoring. Brother Paul pastored the church in Corinth, and every campus coordinator, every pastor, in fact every one of us, if you're raising disciples, you can observe the kind of disciples you're raising. You can discern, you can see, you can tell. You don't need rocket science. You can just look at your disciple and know areas where you need to work on, and know areas where you need to correct, and know areas where you need to pour more into your disciple. Same thing with the campus, same thing with the church, same thing with the campus coordinator. Brother Paul is observing the church in Corinth. In chapter 6, he begins to rebuke them on taking one another to court. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 5. 1 Corinthians chapter 6 verse 5. I speak to your shame. Is it so that there is not a wise man among you? No, not one that shall be able to judge between his brethren. No wise man. You're all taking one another to court. Is there no wise person in among you that can call a brother and a brother together and resolve their issue without going before unbelievers in court? They should know by experience. Paul's letter to the church at Corinth is usually called the letter of ecclesiology, because Corinthian church is an x-ray of the local church. All right, so he said many things by observation. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, he said there is division among you. There is division in this local church. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, he said there is strife among you. Chapter 3 led to chapter 4, where he emphasized strife. People were living in strife, bitterness, anger, unforgiveness. That church was full of muddy water, corrupt water, strife, bitterness. When they gather, the environment is toxic even for them. To eat it as a thing sacrificed unto idols, and their weak conscience pollutes their entire life. He began to talk about the importance of knowledge. Chapter 9, he deals with those who are weak and those who are strong. Chapter 10, he goes to their conduct. He begins to deal with food offered to idols. Then 1 Corinthians 11, the men and women in the assembly and how they related in submission. Then 1 Corinthians chapter 12, 13 and 14, the gifts of the Spirit in their midst. Then 1 Corinthians chapter 15, some people came and were preaching no resurrection from the dead, and Brother Paul began to rebuke them. How did you even allow such people to come into your congregation and begin to say there will be no resurrection? If there is no resurrection, then our faith is useless. The church in Corinth. 1 Corinthians chapter 16, about putting resources to help the saints, sending relief to the brethren in Jerusalem. The later is more of dealing with what had been observed. So you, as a pastor of a house church, a pastor of a campus, a pastor of a cluster group, you should know what you have observed in your church. You should know what you observe among the members that God has made you to have oversight over. In 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verse 29, 1 Corinthians chapter 14 verse 29, let the prophet speak 2 or 3 and let the other judge. And when he's talking about prophet here, he's talking about brothers that are full of the Spirit, that have a gift of prophecy in manifestation. Let the prophet speak 1 or 2, which means it was a common thing in that church. It was common, 2-3 people prophesying at the same time. And then Paul said, no, I know that 3 of you now have prophecy, but let it be orderly, so that nobody's prophesying there, another person is prophesying, another person is prophesying there. While we're trying to hear these 3, another one stands up. So now you don't know which to hear. So Paul said, I know all of you can prophesy at once, but let it be one after the other, so that there's orderliness, because God is a God of order and a God of decency. I'm teaching good this morning.